and welcome back to another epic, awesome new video. Today's topic will be on the Crimean War. We'll be continuing where we left off in the previous video. So we'll be actually talking about the battles in this video. Now, if you haven't already watched the previous video on the cause of the war, I recommend you to watch it. Also, be aware of my potential to mispronounce things. Let me know in the comments below if I mispronounce something. Now, let's get started with the Crimean devastating war. It's best described by William Howard Russell. The commonest accessories of a field hospital are not to be found. The sick appear to be tended by the sick, and the dying by the dying. This reminds us of the horrors of war, so let us remember this event for the fallen soldiers. After the Russian Tsar heard of the failure of his Prince Menshikov's diplomacy towards the rest of Europe, he dispatched armies led by Field Marshal Ivan Paskovich and Mikhail Gorchakov across the Prut River towards the Danubian principalities of Moldavia and Wallachia, controlled by the Ottomans. Of the 80,000 Russian soldiers that crossed the river, fewer than half survived due to poor medical quality. Russia used Sultan Abdülmecid I's inability to determine the issue of the protection of the Christian sites in Ottoman territory to justify their annexation of a few Ottoman provinces. Tsar Nicholas I thought the European powers, particularly Austria, would not be against strongly of their annexation, as Russia had just helped Austria put down the Hungarian Revolution of 1849. On October 4, 1853, the Ottomans declared an ultimatum to Russia to withdraw from the Danubian principalities or face war, but it was ignored. On account of this, Ottoman forces under Ottoman General Omar Pasha crossed the Danube River, facing the Ottomans on the right bank at Oltenia. The Battle of Oltenia second day of the second test was almost simply November 2, 1873, the vanguard of the Ottoman forces crossed the Danube River near eastern Wallachia and occupied a post at Oltenia. After one battalion crossed over, another crossed, and the third, and etc. They managed to fortify the area. 2 days later, Russian troops under the command of General Dadenburg attacked the fortified Ottoman positions. The Russian army included 9 squadrons of cavalry and 9 battalions of infantry, around 6,000 soldiers. During the first 2 hours, they fired heavy artillery onto the fort. Determining that the Ottoman troops were sufficiently weakened, the Russians launched their infantry into the fray. They advanced with the formation of dense battalion columns. However, they were under heavy Ottoman fire and suffered heavy casualties. Right when the Russians began to storm the fortifications, General Dadenburg called a retreat. The Russians lost around 1,000 men, while the Ottomans lost a stark contrast of only 180 men. Omar Pasha decided to not pursue the Russians. The Ottomans had won the first engagement of the war. This was a tactical victory for the Ottomans, which greatly boosted morale. It was greatly exaggerated by the European press as a great Ottoman triumph over the Russians. However, it itself had very little impact on the region. In the Caucasus region of the war, it was a bit more eventful. Ottoman Sultan Abdülmecid ordered his troops to immediately launch an offensive against the Russians. With October closing, the Russian Caucasus Corps was in danger of being encircled. Thus, the Russian naval fleet at Sevastopol, led by Admiral Pavel Nakhimov, was forced to act. Russian ships were dispatched in the Black Sea to regain control of the Caucasus region. Storms led to most of Nakhimov's ships unable to keep on going. Concurrently, Vice Admiral Osman Pasha had to reluctantly dock at Sinop to seek winter quarters. The Ottomans were going to send more ships there, but it was objected to by the British ambassador to the Ottomans. However, on that same day that Osman docked at Sinop, Nakhimov sighted Osman's flag entering the Sinope harbor. Immediately, he deployed a blockade of the harbor and sent his frigate to retrieve as many reinforcements as possible. 3 Russian ships, commanded by Admiral Nakhimov, arrived at Sinope on the 23rd of November. There they discovered the Ottoman fleet in the harbor under defensive fortifications. Nakhimov was ordered by the commander-in-chief of the navy, Alexander Menshikov, to eliminate any Ottoman ships with supplies to the Caucasus region. Osman realized the Russian presence, but thought he ought not need to act, as he thought his ships would be safe in the harbor. There was a large amount of harbor defenses and forts with artillery. On November 28, Vice Admiral Fyodor Novoselsky joined Nakhimov with 6 additional warships. The Russians were set, and the Battle of Sinope would begin. On November 30th, just a week after Nakhimov had discovered the Ottoman fleet, the Russian squadron entered. Nakhimov spaced his battleships evenly into 2 columns, firing with artillery at short range. Using Paxi-Hun guns, the first naval weapon designed to fire explosive shells, Ottoman ships were instantly set on fire. Paxi found firefighting efforts to be futile under heavy fire and shrapnel. All the Ottoman ships were destroyed by the Russians, including 2 that exploded. Only 1 Ottoman vessel escaped the battle, arriving at Constantinople 3 days after to inform the defeat at Sinope. After the destruction of the Ottoman fleet, the Russians destroyed the coastal forces and set the surroundings ablaze. Sinope was bombarded for 6 days, leading to the deaths of 3,000 sailors compared to a mere 300 Russian casualties. This battle showed that the widely hated and detested Russian Navy was still capable. However, the Russians were wild happy. However, the European press dramatized it as the massacre of Sinope, and it created waves of anti-Russian sentiment. Egyptian Prince Omar Tusan summarizes it best. The Turkish and Egyptian naval ships, despite their small size and the huge size of the Russian ships, were fighting with all valor and courage, but this was to no avail, as the strength of the Russian navy was much greater than the strength of the Turkish and Egyptian navy, and the aforementioned war resulted in the destruction of the ships of this navy and the killing of most of its ships. All the while, the Caucasus region was also turning into Russian favorites. Ottoman General Ali Pasha launched an attack towards the city of Akheltsikhe in Georgia. However, they found themselves against a Russian detachment led by Prince Andronikov, a noble Russian general. During the Battle of Akheltsikhe, Russian forces outmaneuvered the superior in numbers Ottoman force, creating Ottoman casualties of 3,500 men, while the Russians only lost 350. A little south of it, the Ottoman army faced the again outnumbered Russians at the Battle of Basketdedkla, where the efforts were repelled and around 8,000 more Ottoman casualties occurred. These 2 side-by-side losses of the Ottomans meant that they would be unable to seize the Caucasus, allowing the Russians to strengthen their positions. The Ottomans also were not really able to capitalize on their initial win on the Balkans at Otentia, and they were unable to capture the Romanian town of Sitate at the Battle of Sitate. These Ottoman defeats in the Caucasus and Sinope encouraged the Western Allies to further intervene in this war, laying the groundwork for the battles in Crimea itself. As the winter brought 1863 to a close, Western Europe planned an intervention in the Crimean War. Thank you so much. Subscribe, and yeah, if we can get 10 likes, I'll make a part 3 where we'll be talking about 1864 for the Crimean War. This literally took 10 plus hours and a lot of hard work, so please subscribe and like. Comment down in the description if you like this video, and yeah, please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and hope you enjoy.